In a world where alliances are forged through trade and diplomacy, recent shifts in U.S. trade policies have sent ripples across the globe. Long-standing allies find themselves at crossroads, reevaluating relationships and economic strategies. The Philippines, with its deep ties to both the U.S. and neighboring nations, watches these developments with keen interest. Why are long-standing allies turning against the U.S.? What impact do these trade disputes have on global economies? But first, which country do you think has imposed the most significant retaliatory tariffs against the U.S.? A. European Union. B. Canada. C. China. D. Mexico. Comment your answer below. We'll reveal the correct choice later in the video. Country 1. European Union. When President Trump reignited his tariff crusade in 2025, the European Union didn't just sit back with a croissant and espresso. They retaliated with a €26 billion, $28.4 billion, salvo of tariffs targeting iconic American products like bourbon, motorcycles, and orange juice, items that resonate deeply with American culture and economy. This wasn't just about economics. It was a statement. The EU's message was clear. If you tax our steel and aluminum, we'll tax your Harley-Davidsons and Kentucky's finest. The European Commission labeled these countermeasures as swift and proportionate, emphasizing their commitment to defending EU industries and jobs. But the EU didn't stop at tariffs. They threatened to escalate the dispute to the World Trade Organization and considered additional measures, such as restricting exports of scrap metal essential for U.S. steel mills. This strategic chess move aimed to pressure the U.S. into negotiations while preparing for a prolonged trade battle. For the Philippines, these developments are more than distant diplomatic sparring. As the EU seeks to diversify its trade partnerships, it has accelerated free trade negotiations with the Philippines, presenting Manila with both opportunities and challenges in navigating this complex global trade landscape. So while the US and EU exchange economic jabs, the Philippines must decide, will it seize the moment or risk being a bystander in this high-stakes game? Country 2. Canada. When President Trump reignited his tariff crusade in 2025, Canada didn't just sit back with a maple syrup-covered pancake. They retaliated with a 25% surtax on $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, including whiskey, ketchup, and lawn mowers. Items that resonate deeply with American culture and economy. This wasn't just about economics, it was a statement. The Canadian government's message was clear. If you tax our steel and aluminum, we'll tax your Kentucky's finest and backyard essentials. The surtax, effective March 4, 2025, was part of a broader strategy to pressure the U.S. into reconsidering its trade stance. The Canadian government emphasized their commitment to defending Canadian industries and jobs. But Canada didn't stop at tariffs. They considered additional measures, such as restricting exports of critical minerals essential for U.S. industries. This strategic chess move aimed to pressure the U.S. into negotiations while preparing for a prolonged trade battle. For the Philippines, these developments are more than distant diplomatic sparring. As Canada seeks to diversify its trade partnerships, it has accelerated free trade negotiations with the Philippines, presenting Manila with both opportunities and challenges in navigating this complex global trade landscape. So, while the U.S. and Canada exchange economic jabs, the Philippines must decide, will it seize the moment or risk being a bystander in this high-stakes game? Country 3. Mexico. When the U.S. imposed a 25% tariff on Mexican imports in March 2025, Mexico didn't just sit back and accept it. They responded with their own tariffs, targeting American products like pork, cheese, apples, grapes, and even bourbon whiskey. These choices weren't random. They were strategic, aiming at U.S. states that heavily supported President Trump. By focusing on these goods, Mexico aimed to create economic pressure in regions that could influence U.S. trade policies. Interestingly, Mexico spared the automotive sector, recognizing its importance to both economies and the potential for mutual harm. This tit-for-tat escalation underscores how trade policies can quickly become tools of diplomacy and political maneuvering. For countries like the Philippines, these developments serve as a reminder of the interconnectedness of global economies. Shifts in North American trade relations can have cascading effects on global supply chains, potentially impacting markets far beyond the immediate players. As the Philippines navigates its own trade relationships, understanding these dynamics is crucial to safeguarding its economic interests. Country 4. Japan. When President Trump announced a sweeping 24% tariff on all Japanese imports in April 2025, Japan's economy felt the shockwaves immediately. The Nikkei 225 plummeted by nearly 8% in a single day, marking one of its steepest declines in history. Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba, who had recently pledged a new golden age in U.S.-Japan relations, was left grappling with the sudden turn of events. Despite Japan's significant investments in the U.S., including a $1 billion commitment and plans for new factories by Toyota and Isuzu, the tariffs threatened to derail the economic partnership. In response, Japan adopted a multifaceted strategy. While seeking exemptions from the tariffs, particularly on automobiles, Japan also considered increasing imports of U.S. corn to support its ethanol and biomass sectors. However, the U.S. remained firm, rejecting Japan's requests for exemptions. Domestically, the Bank of Japan faced mounting pressure as wholesale inflation rose to 4%, driven by increased costs in food and agriculture. The central bank hinted at potential interest rate hikes to stabilize the economy. For the Philippines, Japan's experience underscores the importance of economic diversification and resilience in the face of global trade uncertainties. Country 5. Australia. When President Trump imposed a 10% blanket tariff on most Australian goods in April 2025, despite the U.S. maintaining a trade surplus with Australia, Canberra found itself in an unexpected predicament. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese criticized the move as not the act of a friend, but chose not to retaliate, aiming to avoid escalating tensions and higher consumer prices. Instead, Australia focused on protecting its national interests through strategic patience and diversification of trade partnerships. To mitigate the impact of the tariffs, the Australian government unveiled a 5-point plan, including a $50 million assistance package for affected industries and $1 billion in zero-interest loans. Additionally, Australia sought to strengthen trade relations with other partners, such as negotiating a free trade agreement with the European Union and a critical minerals deal with India. This approach underscores Australia's commitment to maintaining strong bilateral ties while adapting to the evolving global trade landscape. For the Philippines, Australia's measured response offers valuable insights into balancing national interests with global trade norms. As countries navigate complex trade disputes, strategic patience and diversification may prove more effective than immediate retaliation. Country 6. South Korea. When the U.S. imposed a 25% tariff on South Korean exports in April 2025, Seoul didn't retaliate with counter-tariffs. Instead, it launched a comprehensive support package worth 4.6 trillion won, approximately $3.25 billion, to aid small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, affected by the tariffs. This initiative includes financial assistance, subsidies to reduce logistics costs, and measures to help these firms expand their export markets. Additionally, the government approved an extra budget of 13.8 trillion won to bolster the economy amid weak domestic demand and the anticipated effects of U.S. tariffs. South Korea's approach underscores the importance of adaptability in trade policy. For countries like the Philippines, diversifying trade relations and investing in domestic industries could be effective strategies to mitigate similar challenges. Country 7. Brazil. When President Trump reignited his tariff crusade in 2025, Brazil didn't just sit back with a caipirinha. Instead, it saw an opportunity to strengthen its position in global markets. With the U.S. imposing tariffs on various countries, Brazil aimed to boost its exports in sectors like agriculture and mining. The country capitalized on the trade disputes between other nations, seeking to fill the gaps left by disrupted supply chains. Brazil's strategy showcases how nations can turn global trade tensions into opportunities. For the Philippines, identifying niches in the global market could be key to economic growth. By observing Brazil's proactive measures, the Philippines can learn the importance of adaptability and seizing opportunities amid global uncertainties. Country 8. United Kingdom. When President Trump reignited his tariff crusade in 2025, the United Kingdom found itself navigating a complex post-Brexit trade landscape. Facing a 25% U.S. tariff on steel and aluminum exports, the UK engaged in negotiations to protect its industries, particularly steel and automotive sectors. In May 2025, a limited trade agreement was reached, reducing car tariffs from 27.5% to 10% for up to 100,000 vehicles annually, and eliminating tariffs on British steel and aluminum. However, the deal included stringent U.S. security requirements, scrutinizing foreign involvement in critical industries, which drew criticism from China, viewing it as an attempt to exclude Chinese products from British supply chains. The UK's experience underscores the complexities of redefining trade relationships in a post-Brexit era. While the agreement provided relief for certain sectors, it also highlighted the delicate balance between securing favorable trade terms and maintaining diplomatic relations with other global powers. For the Philippines, this evolving UK trade landscape may present new opportunities for bilateral agreements, especially as the UK seeks to diversify its trade partnerships beyond the European Union. As global trade dynamics continue to shift, staying informed and adaptable becomes crucial for nations aiming to safeguard their economic interests. Country 9. India. When the U.S. imposed 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports in early 2025, India didn't just sit back and accept the blow. Instead, it promptly approached the World Trade Organization, WTO, proposing retaliatory duties on select American products. This move aimed to counteract the economic impact of the U.S. tariffs, which affected approximately $7.6 billion worth of Indian exports. While India hasn't specified the exact products targeted, past retaliatory measures included items like almonds and apples, signaling a strategic approach to pressure key U.S. industries. India's assertive stance underscores the importance of proactive trade policies in defending national economic interests. For countries like the Philippines, this approach serves as a reminder of the need to balance protecting domestic industries with fostering international trade relationships. As global trade dynamics continue to evolve, staying informed and adaptable becomes crucial for nations aiming to safeguard their economic interests. Country 10. China. When President Trump reignited his tariff crusade in 2025, China responded with a series of retaliatory measures that sent shockwaves through global markets. Beijing imposed tariffs as high as 125% on U.S. goods, including soybeans, automobiles, and agricultural products, effectively pricing them out of the Chinese market. These actions disrupted long-standing trade relationships and forced U.S. exporters to seek alternative markets. The escalating tit-for-tat tariffs led to a significant decline in bilateral trade, with U.S. soybean exports to China dropping by 20%. The The trade war prompted a reevaluation of global supply chains, with companies diversifying their manufacturing bases to mitigate risks associated with US-China tensions. This shift presented both challenges and opportunities for countries like the Philippines, which could position themselves as alternative manufacturing hubs. However, the volatility of the trade environment necessitates careful navigation to capitalize on these opportunities without becoming collateral damage in the broader geopolitical struggle. As the US and China continue their complex dance of economic rivalry, the ripple effects will undoubtedly influence global trade dynamics for years to come. As we've just seen, when trade turns into a battlefield, even the oldest allies don't hesitate to sharpen their economic swords. From the European Union's Bourbon-targeted payback to China's full-blown tariff blitz, these 10 nations have drawn clear lines in the sand against Trump's aggressive trade tactics. The result? A global ripple effect that's not only reshaping supply chains, but also redrawing the map of modern alliances. For the Philippines, these shifts aren't just headlines. They're opportunities and warnings rolled into one. As major economies pivot, diversify, and retaliate, there's valuable insight in observing how each nation defends its interests, protects its industries, or seizes a sudden vacuum in the market. Will the Philippines rise as a new trade bridge in Asia? Or will it stand still as others make the moves? Now it's your turn. Which country's strategy impressed you the most? And which one do you think could hurt the US the most in the long run? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And yes, the answer to our earlier quiz, which country has imposed the most significant retaliatory tariffs? It's C, China. No surprise, right? If you enjoyed this deep dive into global power plays, hit that like button, subscribe to Discovering the Earth, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because in this game of trade and tension, there's always another twist waiting just around the corner. Stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you in the next one.